was at your lecture right now, and you said at the end that you consider yourself to be a machine.
Yeah.
Could you please
Don't
explain?
Well, I think we abide by the laws of physics and chemistry and biology. So, you know, we evolve, we act just like, you know, according to these laws. I mean, I'm just a particular special case. In this sense, I don't know what is the definition of machine, but in the sense that we are following, you know, universal laws, and yeah, you can think of it as a machine. I'm saying machine mainly to contrast it with the various questions that people raise all the time about are we different than machines? I don't like this question. I think it's not, well, it's certainly not formulated because people don't define what is we and what is human and then what is. I would like people to tell me in what way we are different. So that's a better answer. It's not that it's important that I think of myself as a machine. I think that people raising such questions should tell me what do they mean by when they are trying to make a distinction.
And the background was that you had a lecture that started out with explaining the Turing imitation game. So could you please give a short summary of what that is?
Yeah, so Turing was the very early days of computers. Of course, he was a pioneer of that, was trying to consider the question of whether machines, which you can program and make them calculate things, they can also become intelligent. And clearly by intelligence he meant something beyond being able to do, you know, addition or calculate things very, very quickly. So I think he was ahead of his time looking into research that people are doing now about neuroscience research, about consciousness, about, you know, now with AI, about the ability of machines, well, by this I mean computers, to behave in some, like humans in various ways. So what is suggested is that we should study this problem by testing whether a candidate intelligent robot or machine can behave like human in conversation. So whether a human referee that is conversing with someone, which may be either a human or a computer program, can distinguish the two. That was his suggestion as a rule for deciding whether something, whatever it is intelligent or can converse or have other properties that are human-like. Just compare it to a human and see what comes out. If nobody can distinguish, nobody you trust, for him it's a human, trust, can distinguish the two, then you can say that whatever the software, the robot, behave human-like. Yeah.
And in that sense, you can consider yourself a machine because you don't believe that there is a fundamental difference.
It's not because of that. I told you the reason I consider all of us, all beings, all natural phenomena, creatures, plants, anything which evolves according to fixed laws. The laws can be the law of gravity, or it can be the law that says a conjunction of two bits is 1 or 0 according to their values. So there is simple rules of evolution. In computers, they are different than in a volcano, but they are prescribed. If you know the situation now, you are in principle, supposed to know it in the next step. This is true of the volcano, the tree, the computer, and myself.
Right, but back to what you talked about in your lecture, because there you show that Turing's idea was quite fruitful also in other examples or fields, and especially in mathematics as well.
Yeah, so what I try to illustrate in the lecture is that this framework of an imitation game, of this making a definition by comparison and by testing some property with a set of tests, which is like Turing's imitation game, is very valuable. What I described is in hindsight. I mean, most people who made these definitions in cryptography, in pseudo-randomness, in privacy, and in this mathematics, discrete mathematics, number theory, I don't think they consciously thought of, oh, we want to imitate Turing and let's set up a definition that is it was just natural for them to do it, just like it was natural for him to do it. I just put it up together. Yeah. So I think it's an extremely natural way to make definitions. And in the cases I described in the lecture, it turns out that you can formalize it. You can make it really mathematical. Turing's description of his imitation game is very loose. I mean, what is a human referee? What are exactly the rules of the conversation? How do you isolate it's all very informally described. In what I talked about, all these examples were mathematical, formally defined similar imitation games where they serve as definitions of fundamental notions in these respective fields. And these definitions, once you have them, you can start proving theorems and start designing systems that are based on these theorems. Mm. So it's a much more, I would say, scientific than Turing's suggestion at the level it did it. Yeah.
But to give a concrete example, we could use cryptography, and the problem is to define when is a system secure or not, right? And it was quite recently before anyone tried to define it.
Yeah, so I think that the revolution in cryptography, the conceptual one, was by Diffie and Hellman, to just say that you should take into account the computational resources of your adversaries, that you can talk about security of a system by limiting the computational resources of the adversary. And what Goldwasser and Micali did in this paper I mentioned was that they really formalized it mathematically with the idea of probabilistic encryption, and this then took over to other, system security, right?
But is this kind of definitions good enough to make mathematical proofs? I mean, usually you think of mathematical proofs as absolutely 100% safe or very precise.
Yes.
But here you have a sort of a limit and uncertainty.
No. What you, I mean, it's a mathematical theorem that if you toss 100 coins, then with probability 99%, the number of heads and the number of tails will be very close to each other, will be like within 5%. It's a mathematical theorem about probabilities. You can make absolutely, completely foolproof, rigorous proofs about probabilistic events. It's probability, that's what happens in the field of probability. And that's the kind of theorems that are also proved in cryptography. Sure.
And because this also applies to the field where you have been active, right?
It's all over the place. I mean, I study randomness, and I study cryptography, and I study algorithms, and in all of them, you make, I mean, these are, I would say it's part of mathematics in exactly this way that we prove theorems. We prove absolutely mathematical theorems about system security, about the behavior of pseudo-random generators and behavior of probabilistic algorithms. So we are a branch of mathematics that tries to understand computation and the resources it consumes. Yeah.
And a fundamental thing in that field is randomness, right? That you have studied.
Yeah.
And a question that was asked and is very fundamental is if there is theoretically any way to decide if the world is random.
Yeah, so I don't think we know it. We know a way like this. There are definitely theories of nature, in particular quantum mechanics, which postulates, which just assumes that nature behaves randomly. You know, they say you measure a photon with a particular basis, a particular filter, then you would have answer, you know, spin up or spin horizontal or vertical with probability 1/2. This is a postulate. This is not verifying. I mean, people tested it and it looks like it's true. We don't have a way to test whether this is true right now without the aid of randomness, which is sort of circular, right? But anyway, there's really interesting research regarding this.
Yeah, because the thing that you have proved is that you can make pseudo-random numbers that behaves in exactly the same way in that limit as random numbers.
Yes, but this is assuming that we have some hard function.
Yeah.
We don't know that the hard functions exist. We don't know that P is different than NP, for example. But we believe, I mean, we all sort of believe, assume anyway that there are hard functions like factoring integers. So assuming that there are hard, yeah, right, this is used for cryptography. Assuming that some problems are hard is a cheap assumption. I think most people believe it. It's not, all you have to believe is that not all problems are easily solvable. And this is enough to get pseudo-random generators with full probabilistic algorithms. Yeah. So under this assumption, I can generate things that look random for you deterministically.
Yeah, and then there is really difficult to sort of make to find what is true randomness and pseudo randomness if they are the same.
Yeah, so that's the point. You will not be able to distinguish them. You will not, at least not by any efficient means. That's exactly the point. Yeah,
right.
And the consequence is that randomness is not as powerful as you might think.
What does prizes, scientific prizes like the Abel Prize mean to you personally and to the field?
Well, prizes is a complicated issue in general. In any discipline, they are never totally objective. They are given by committees. Committees are people, and anyway, they carry, of course, lots of good things for people, for fields, and they carry also some negative feelings of people who think that there were mistakes or they should have gotten it, and so on. So I'm not crazy about prizes in general, but I think they are valuable from a society point of view because people are somewhat far away from, I don't know, science or scientific work and scientists, and somehow this is a mediator to bring knowledge to. It captures attention. Somehow people like this or connect better when they hear that there are prizes and maybe they carry a lot of money and they. I was of course very happy to get the Abel Prize, and I was even happier that my field got it. I'm a representative of my field. It was the first time that the International Mathematical Union gave the prize to computer scientists, and I think that I feel myself extremely lucky to be in the field I am, because I think it's great both scientifically and also personally. I mean, most of my friends are my colleagues, and I have, this 40 years of life within this community has been a great experience for me, not just scientifically, but also personally. So I think I'm just one representative of my field, and I really believe I carry this prize for lots of people, in particular those I collaborated with and my students and people I learned so much from.
Growing up, did you know forever that you wanted to be a scientist, or how did you?
Well, I knew I loved math. This is what I knew. I had no idea what it means to be a researcher. My father was an engineer, there was no one academic in the family. Yeah, he asked me riddles since I was very young, and I knew I loved it, and I loved math in school, and I knew yeah, that's what I knew, that I love it. So when it came time for college, I actually wanted to go to math, but my parents said that, maybe you should also get a job afterwards, so why don't you learn computer science, because, it has math in it, but maybe, when you graduate, so I did, and I think it was, in a way, very lucky, because within computer science, I really loved the theoretical courses and more mathematical courses, and I got into theoretical computer science, so that's, I ended up, somehow in both worlds. I think that the study of computation is one of the most fascinating mathematically in the history of mathematics. It's a concept, like the concept of prime numbers, like the concept of continuous functions, or certain manifolds, various key notions in mathematics. This is a concept that you want to understand, and it's extremely rich. It touches all sciences. It touches the natural phenomena. It touches, intelligence and consciousness. Yeah, I think understanding nature has to be done, in particular from the computational point of view, because it explains it maybe more accurately, sometimes better, and anyway, it throws in important ingredient into all sciences, so all studies, I would say, yeah.
I heard my colleague Marina referred to you as the beach boy from Haifa.
Well, I am, I mean, that's how I grew up. I grew up in a, sort of blue-collar neighborhood on the beach in Haifa. Yeah, so I spent, I would say, 90% of my time on the beach, where I lived 2 minutes walk from the beach. Not just me, all my kids in my neighborhood. Otherwise, we just played soccer, so it was either this or that. So, I love the beach. I love swimming and diving, and I wish I could do more of it now.
Do you surf as well?
I don't surf, no. I tried once windsurfing. Windsurfing, and I liked it, but I didn't really have living where we did in Jerusalem, in Israel, and then in Princeton, it's not readily available, so it's, but I like it.
How do you use your status and position today? You were a rock star up there to very many students. How do you use your position to better the situation for those who come after you?
I think that, I really like to lecture and teach. I don't know if I'm using my position or this got me my position. What is a chicken, what is the egg? I invest a lot in these lectures, and I get a lot, of course, from the audience. I loved it that they let people ask questions today as opposed to yesterday, where they had one quick question. Of course, I talked to Anna, and I asked her to let people ask. It seems they want to ask questions. So, I think a major part of our responsibility is education, and talking to young people, and definitely telling them about what we are doing is exciting. So, anyway, I enjoy it. I really enjoy it.
You have been the co-author of with over 100 scientists. How do you do that? What makes you such a good collaborator?
I don't know. I'm a social guy. I like talking to people. If I have an idea, I don't think about it. I go and tell somebody, and we think about it together. I found that this is a mode of work that I really enjoy, and it works great for me. So I would say that our community, the theoretical computer science one, is very interactive. It's more interactive than generally math. although math is becoming more interactive. Sorry, I'm not unique in that way. Maybe I have more, maybe I talk too much. Anyway, I love, talking to people about, in particular about problems and solving them together. I think it's very enriching. I learn a lot this way. That's basically it.
The Abel Prize in 2021 was awarded to computer science. What do you think that means? Is the bridge between mathematics and computer science now built?
Well, I think that what I said earlier about the importance of computation, the notion of computation to the sciences, goes the same way to mathematics. In mathematics, there are many studies of objects where you want to understand whether they exist. And the kind of computational question that comes with it is, yeah, show me one. Okay, something exists, I want to see one. Tell me how to get there. Write an algorithm that will generate the object that has whatever properties. So there are lots of algorithmic questions that are sort of hidden or are implicit in mathematics. Sometimes they are asked, in fact, like Carlos Koenig pointed today, or somebody else, that mathematics always did algorithms. I mean, Euclid's algorithm and Gauss's Gauss elimination. All great mathematicians engage in computation. Now with this our field, once it has established its basic theories of complexity classes, reductions, various tools that we have, we apply them to problems in other disciplines, and in particular to mathematics. And what is happening is, I'm not surprised at all, even though each result of this nature is surprising and sometimes shocking. It turns out that computer scientists started proving, resolving long-term conjectures in mathematics. I think that mathematicians realize this. They realize both that we ask good questions for them. Computational questions often calls for revisiting, all theories and getting them more elaborate. You need to understand more structure if you want to answer the algorithmic question rather than just existing question. And second, that intrinsic computationally motivated questions often connect naturally to problems that existed independently in mathematics. And sometimes solving these solves that also. So the most recent splash, I would say last year, was a result of 5 people. I'm not sure I remember all of them, but Natarajan and Lee and Vidic and Yuan and somebody else. Anyway, it's acronyms. It's MIP star equal RE, but doesn't matter. It's a result about interactive proof systems and the power of this actually quantum interactive proof systems. So it's sort of a computational complexity theoretic question. But when they proved it, it turned out, and in fact some of the connections were known, that if this is true, then it resolves a major problem in operator algebras, which is a big mathematical field. It solves another problem in quantum information theory, which is a major thing in quantum mechanics in physics. So they were interested in, various computational models, and nevertheless, this study led to this resolution of very different questions in math and physics. So, and this is just one of many examples. The mathematical community realizes this, so I think that it was natural for them to embrace us. I mean, it's, they've done earlier things, right? They've created the Irmelin Prize in the early 80s for basically theory of computation. That's a prize that the mathematical community gives. So they realize that it's an important discipline and it's mathematical and it's important to mathematics.